Hi class, welcome to our second video on motivation and emotion, where you're going to learn more about motivation theories. What will you be learning? You're going to be learning about intrinsic and extrinsic motivation. You'll also be learning about drive reduction and arousal theories of motivation. And you're going to be learning about Maslow's hierarchy of needs. And you'll be able to apply your understanding to real-world examples. Now that we understand what motivation is, we want to look at how motivation works. So in your textbook, there are different theories of motivation that attempt to explain how motivation drives our behavior. So we have instinct theory, drive reduction theory, arousal theory, and Maslow's hierarchy of needs. So why do we need these different theories? Well, when I was in college, I wanted to know which model was right, which is the best. I found myself wanting that question answered often. But usually the models considered the best are the ones that explain the greatest range of thinking and behavior. But the truth is, all of these models have survived for decades, not because they individually explain everything, but because each model tells us something important. So rather than asking yourself which is the best model, ask yourself, how does this particular model help us to understand motivation better? And taken together, they help us to understand what drives us. Let's begin by looking at drive reduction theory. So according to this theory, the body has certain physiological needs that it must maintain at a constant state. So the brain monitors internal levels of oxygen and blood sugar and temperature, for example. And when they fall below the optimal constant level, a drive is then created, which then urges us to meet the need to restore homeostasis, that balanced state of functioning. So, for example, thirst has a key role in maintaining body fluid homeostasis, and it happens when we are, for example, outside and it's very hot and we're sweating a lot. Maybe we are running and we are breathing heavily, and so this then drives us to drink water because of the loss of water. So we're driven to maintain homeostasis, and we can really think about this as being related to the thermostat in your home that controls temperature. So you set it to an optimal temperature, let's say 71 degrees, and the thermostat detects when the temperature deviates, and then it adjusts. It actually may turn on the heat. If it's the winter time, the heat may kick on in order to then bring that temperature to that optimal level that you have set. This theory helps us to understand some of our very basic physiological needs a bit more. But there are lots of motivated behaviors that this theory does not shed any light on. So for example, most of us eat when we're not hungry. And what about the drive to explore our environment? What about curiosity? Well, the arousal theory of motivation helps us to understand drives like curiosity and how low arousal can increase the strength of other drives. So according to this theory, we seek an optimal level of physiological arousal or alertness and engagement. And if we're under aroused or bored, it motivates us to engage in behaviors to increase arousal. But if we're anxious or over-aroused, we'll engage in behaviors to reduce arousal. So new environments and new activities and being with people tend to increase arousal. And if we find we are bored, we might look for some of these new experiences. Whereas if we're already stressed, we might prefer familiarity. So why are some people more likely to engage in sensation-seeking behaviors? The optimal level varies for different people. If your optimal level of arousal is higher, you tend to be more likely to seek out these experiences. The optimal level of arousal also depends on the complexity and difficulty of the task you're working on, which leads us to something called Yurky's Dodson law. So performance is better for practiced, easy tasks during high arousal, whereas performance on challenging or difficult activities is best during moderate arousal. This is always a good example because it's something we have all experienced at one point or another: public speaking. The presence of an audience creates high levels of arousal. And according to Yurky's Dodson law, we just learned that familiar or simple tasks tend to be facilitated in this situation, and unfamiliar or difficult tasks tend to be hindered. So, whether or not we perform optimally in this situation will depend upon whether giving a presentation is challenging or difficult for us, or if it's an easy, familiar task for us. In an interesting study on the effects of the presence of others on how well one plays pool, there was a study that was done in 1982 where researchers studied the effect of observers on pool players' performance. So for good players who had made 71% of their shots, the presence of the observers increased their performance to 80% of shots being made. But for bad pool players, where 36% of their shots were made, the presence of the observers hurt their performance. Abraham Maslow attempted to organize a more comprehensive list of all human needs, which includes physiological, social, and personal needs. In its simplest form, the pyramid is divided into 5 levels of needs that motivate our behavior. It's organized in a hierarchy to emphasize that some needs will be stronger and take precedence over others. The needs at the bottom of the hierarchy generally take precedence over those that are higher up. According to Maslow, if you satisfy the lower levels of the pyramid, you move to the next. So let's take a look at each of these levels. At the base of the pyramid come our most basic needs, the physiological needs of the body. This includes our need to breathe, eat, drink, have shelter, sleep, regulate our body temperature, and reproduce. And when these needs are not fulfilled, we tend to become preoccupied with them. It's difficult to think about the higher levels of the hierarchy if we have gone without food or water or sleep for a long period of time. After we've achieved the ability to consistently look after our physiological needs, the human being seeks out safety. And safety needs not only refer to our physical safety, but also for a safe place to sleep, a consistent job and income, and health, to be free of disease and infection. We try to earn money, we try to build up resources, and look for shelter that protects us against dangers. Without fulfillment of these needs, a person may feel insecure and then unprotected. At the next level, we seek out love and belonging, and we desire to be close to family and friends and to feel like we belong to a larger community of people. Having good family relationships, romantic intimacy, and other relationships will fulfill this level. Without those, we might become depressed or experience feelings of loneliness. After we feel a sense of belongingness with others, we're ready to achieve our personal goals that will contribute to our self-esteem. We build personal skills. We work towards personal goals to get self-confidence and a sense of achievement and recognition for our abilities and skills and respect from those who are around us. Self-actualization needs are the highest level in Maslow's hierarchy, and they refer to the realization of a person's potential, to self-fulfillment, seeking personal growth and peak experiences. Maslow describes this level as the desire to accomplish everything that one can, to become the most that one can be. Self-actualization needs refer to achieving a sense of inner fulfillment, and self-actualizing people have a grounded sense of well-being. They feel an internal satisfaction and a sense of wonder and gratitude about life. We look at this point to share and to give back to others. The behavior that we see at this level will be highly individualized depending on the person's perception of their true potential. A person who sees their purpose as a parent, perhaps a teacher, athlete, or artist will certainly have different ways of achieving their full potential. The 5 levels of Maslow's hierarchy can be divided into both deficiency needs and growth needs. Deficiency needs arise because of deprivation, and they're said to motivate people when they're unmet. Also, the motivation to fulfill such needs will become stronger the longer the duration that they're denied. So, for example, the longer that a person goes without food, the more hungry they'll become. However, growth needs continue to be felt and may even become stronger once they've been engaged. Maslow recognized that we don't need to fulfill each level 100% before fulfilling the next level. Secondly, there'll be times in our lives where we sacrifice one of our lower level needs in order to achieve a desire higher in this hierarchy. The term, for example, starving student, starving artist is well known. You, like myself as a student, have probably made some sacrifices at a few of the lower level needs in order to get an education. I often sacrificed, for example, some of my physiological needs by not eating the foods that were perhaps the most tasty, the ones that I enjoyed the most, by, for example, eating ramen noodles and not having the best coffee. I sacrificed security needs by driving around in a car that perhaps wasn't necessarily the most safe. And I sacrificed social needs by saying no to quite a few social gatherings in order to get my degrees, which fulfilled my esteem needs. I do find this model to be useful in understanding myself and others. First, I think it helps me to understand why a person might feel a bit stuck in life. It's difficult to think about accomplishments and fulfillment when we have problems at the lower levels. Someone, for example, who has health problems or who perhaps is in an abusive relationship, understandably can be focused on security needs and feel that they're not ready to start new relationships. It helps us understand why we sometimes feel a sense of loss. If we reach esteem or self-actualization, we may fall back to lower levels due to maybe unfortunate life circumstances, including divorce or loss of a job. Finally, as a student with few resources, we can feel reassured by reminding ourselves that we're working on the higher levels of fulfillment. In the next video, you're going to be learning about hunger and eating. You're going to be learning about the physiological reasons for hunger and eating, and you'll learn about metabolism. You'll also be learning about obesity and some of its causes and consequences, and you'll be learning about eating disorders like anorexia and bulimia. As always, if you have any questions about any of the material that you're learning about, please don't hesitate to reach out to me.